The Great Hall of Nexus Prime was the largest structure ever built by living beings. It floated in the empty space between 3 star systems, and inside it, the 12 elder species of the galaxy made their laws. For 10,000 years, they had ruled the stars. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched young species crawl out of their home worlds and reach for the sky. Today, they would meet the species to join the galactic community. Today, they would meet humanity. Captain Park stood at the entrance of the Great Hall and looked at the alien delegates. His uniform was clean and pressed. His back was straight. His face showed nothing. Beside him stood Lieutenant, his tactical officer. Behind them walked Ambassador, the man chosen to speak for all of Earth. The hall was built for giants. The people stood 4 meters tall with thick gray skin and 4 arms. They were made of living crystal, their bodies shining with inner light. There were insects the size of horses, clicking and buzzing as they communicated. And there were 9 other species, each stranger than the last. All of them turned to look at the humans. Heard the whispers. He did not understand the alien languages, but his translator device fed the words directly into his ear. He heard every insult. "So small," said a delegate, "like children." "They have no claws," clicked the observer. "No poison, no armor. How did they survive on their world?" "They are prey animals," said another voice. "Nothing more." Kept walking. His heart was beating fast, but his face remained calm. Walked beside him, and he saw her hands curl into fists. She was angry, he understood. He was angry too. But they had a mission. They had come to ask for help. Ambassador stepped forward to address the council. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had spent his life building bridges between nations on Earth. Now he would try to build a bridge between worlds. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," began, "I come before you today to speak of a great danger. For 3 years, unknown raiders have attacked our colony worlds. They have killed our people. They have stolen our resources. We have tried to fight back, but we are new to space travel. We ask only for protected trade routes so that our ships can travel safely." The hall was silent for a moment. Then the high speaker rose to his full height. He was the largest being in the room, and when he spoke, his voice echoed like thunder. "You ask us for protection," the high speaker said. "You, who have been traveling between stars for less than a century. You who have no weapons worth mentioning. You who are made of soft flesh and weak bones." Laughter filled the hall. Alien voices mixed together in mockery. "Perhaps," the high speaker continued, "you should simply give the raiders what they want. It would save everyone trouble. Your species is clearly not meant for conflict." More laughter. Felt his jaw tighten. Beside him's breathing had become slow and controlled. He recognized that breathing. It was how she prepared for combat. Ambassador remained calm. "We do not wish to surrender our people to raiders. We only ask for—" "You ask for what you have not earned," interrupted a delegate. The crystal being's voice rang like bells. "The Council protects those who can contribute to the galaxy. What can humanity offer? You have no advanced technology. You have no great fleets. You are barely more than animals who learn to build fires." The laughter grew louder. Some delegates did not even try to hide their amusement. They pointed at the humans. They made jokes about human weakness, human stupidity, human worthlessness. Stood perfectly still. He watched, he listened. He remembered every face, every voice, every word. And then he noticed something strange. The ambassador who had just insulted them was looking away, not at the other delegates, not at the humans. She was looking at the floor. Her crystal body was dimmer than the others, and her light flickered nervously. "Lean toward the," he whispered. "She knows something." His eyes moved to the crystal being. She studied her for a long moment. "Fear," whispered back. "She is afraid, not of us, of something else." The high speaker was still talking, still mocking. "Go home, little humans. Build your fires. Hide in your caves. The galaxy has no place for prey animals who pretend to be predators. Ambassador bowed his head. There was nothing more to say. The council had made its decision. Humanity would receive no help. The three humans turned and walked back toward the exit. Behind them, the laughter continued. Alien voices called out final insults, final jokes, final dismissals. But as they passed the section, heard a single whisper. The Crystal Ambassador spoke so quietly that only his translator could catch it. "I am sorry," she said. "They do not know what they have done." Did not respond. He kept walking. But he filed those words away in his memory. She was sorry. They did not know what they had done. What did that mean? The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Ambassador spent most of the time in his quarters, writing reports, trained in the ship's combat room, hitting targets until her hands bled, and sat on the bridge of the Soul, staring at the stars. When they finally reached Earth, they were greeted not by politicians or reporters. They were greeted by a single man in a black uniform. "Captain Park," the man said, "the Admiral would like to speak with you." Followed the man to a transport ship. They flew down through the clouds, past the cities, past the farms, to a mountain range that appeared on no maps. They landed at the entrance to a massive underground facility. Inside, found Admiral waiting for him. The Admiral was an old soldier with scars on his face and ice in his eyes. He had fought in the resource wars of 2089. He had survived the Mars Rebellion. He had built the United Earth Defense Force from nothing. "They laughed at us," the Admiral said. "It was not a question." "Yes, sir," replied. The Admiral nodded slowly. Then he smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Good," he said. "That means they have no idea what is coming." He pressed a button on his desk. The walls around them became transparent, revealing the massive cavern beyond. His breath caught in his throat. Ships, thousands of ships, warships larger than anything the Council had ever built, soldiers in black armor training by the millions, weapons that gleamed with dark promise. "We have been preparing for 200 years, Admiral said. "We knew this day would come. We knew they would underestimate us." He turned to face, and his eyes burned with cold fire. "Now we wait. And when the time comes, we show the galaxy what humanity truly is." In the great hall of Nexus Prime, the elder species continued their mockery of the small, soft, weak humans. They did not know that they had just awakened something ancient and terrible. They did not know that humanity had never forgotten how to hunt. And they did not know that soon, very soon, the hunters would become the hunted. 6 months passed after the humiliation at the Galactic Council. Life continued on Earth. People worked. Children played. Ships traveled between the colony worlds, always watching for raiders, always afraid. And then the messages stopped coming. It began at the edge of the galaxy in the territory of the collective. One day, a colony world sent its regular report. The next day, there was nothing. No signal, no distress call, no explanation, just silence. The sent investigators, they never returned. More worlds went silent, then more. The darkness spread like a disease across the galactic rim. Entire systems simply stopped communicating. Ships that flew too close vanished without a trace. The Empire finally sent a war fleet to investigate. 300 warships, crewed by their finest warriors, armed with weapons that could crack planets. They were the pride of the galaxy. They found the missing worlds. They sent back images. The worlds were empty, not destroyed, not burned, just empty. Billions of people had lived on those planets. Now there was nothing but abandoned cities, dark buildings, and strange claw marks on every surface. And on every wall, burned into the stone and metal in 100 different languages, was a single word. Coming. The fleet tried to retreat. They never made it. Something came out of the darkness between the stars. Something fast. Something hungry. The last transmission from the fleet commander was a scream that lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then silence. The galaxy finally learned the name of the enemy. They were the oldest species in the Council. They remembered things that others had forgotten. They had records of ancient extinction events, of wars fought before most species had learned to walk. They knew about the Hollow. The Hollow were not like other species. They did not build cities or write songs or dream of the future. They existed only to hunt. They were perfect predators born in the empty void between galaxies. They had no eyes, for they did not need light. They had no ears, for they could feel the vibrations of fear in their prey. They were made of darkness and hunger, and they had driven dozens of species to extinction before entering a long, long sleep. Now they were awake, and they were hungry. The Galactic Council gathered in emergency session. Fear filled the Great Hall. The delegates sat in shock, unable to believe that their mighty fleet had been destroyed in moments. The representatives clicked nervously, knowing their people were being hunted. Even the crystal seemed dim and frightened. Admiral watched the session from Earth, his face expressionless. Beside him stood Dr. Shin, the finest on the planet. She had been studying the Hollow since the first reports arrived. They hunt through fear, explained. They emit a frequency that triggers terror in every known sapient species. The prey freezes, the prey runs, the prey cannot think, and then the Hollow take them. Every species, Admiral asked. Smiled slightly, every species except one. She pulled up data on her screen, medical reports, psychological profiles, combat records from humanity's violent history. Humans evolved on a death world, she said. Our planet tried to kill us every day. We faced predators larger and faster and stronger than us. We should have died, but we did not. We developed a different response to fear. Admiral nodded slowly. We run toward the danger. Exactly, said. When humans are afraid, we do not freeze. We do not flee forever. We become more focused, more dangerous, more determined. Fear makes us hunt harder. On the screen, the Galactic Council was debating what to do. Some wanted to flee to the other side of the galaxy. Some wanted to hide on fortress worlds. Some simply wept. Then the ambassador stood. The same ambassador who had apologized to Captain 6 months ago. Her crystal body shook as she spoke. There is only one species that might be able to fight the Hollow, she said. Only one species that does not freeze when faced with terror. Only one species that evolved as persistence predators on a category Omega death world. The hall fell silent. We must ask the humans for help, she said. The High Speaker rose in fury. The humans, those soft, weak creatures we dismissed 6 months ago, you expect us to beg them for protection? Yes, they said simply, because if we do not, we will all die. The message reached Earth 3 hours later. Admiral read it twice, then he laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of a man who had been waiting for this moment his entire life. He called Captain to his office. He called Lieutenant. He called Sergeant, the commander of the Nightwalker Special Operations Unit. He called every officer in the secret fleet. The galaxy needs us, he told them. The same species who laughed at us, who called us prey animals, who refused to protect our colonies are now begging for our help. He paused. The officers waited. We could refuse, Admiral said. We could let them suffer as they let us suffer. We could watch as the Hollow hunt them to extinction. Thought of the ambassador, her quiet apology, her hidden fear. He thought of the billions of innocent people on those darkened worlds, people who had never laughed at humanity, people who were simply trying to survive. But we will not refuse, said, because that is not who we are. Admiral nodded. No, it is not. He pressed a button on his desk and the massive display screen came alive with tactical data. We will help them. We will hunt the Hollow. We will do what no other species can do. He turned to face his officers, and his eyes burned with ancient fire. Wake the Nightwalkers, he said. "It is time to remind the galaxy why humanity conquered a death world." Deep in the training facilities of Earth, soldiers in black armor stopped their exercises. They checked their weapons. They reviewed the data on the holo. They studied the hunting patterns of a predator that had terrified the galaxy for millions of years. Sergeant looked at his soldiers. They were the finest humanity had to offer. They had trained for decades. They had fought in the shadows of a dozen wars. They were the monsters that Earth sent against other monsters. "The Hollow think they are the apex predators," said. "They think the darkness belongs to them. They think fear is their weapon." He loaded his rifle with a soft click. "They are wrong. We grew up in the dark. We learned to hunt in the night, and fear does not stop us. Fear makes us faster. Fear makes us stronger. Fear makes us unstoppable." He looked at his soldiers, at their calm faces, at their steady hands. "The Hollow have never faced anything like us. They have never hunted a species that hunts back. They have never met the children of Earth." He smiled, and it was the smile of a wolf. "Let us teach them why our ancestors called us the apex predators. Let us teach them why we are the monsters that even other monsters fear." The first human fleet launched from Earth's hidden shipyards. They flew toward the darkness at the edge of the galaxy. They flew toward the Hollow. And in the void, the ancient predators waited, unaware that for the first time in their existence they were about to become prey. The first world was called Seven. Before the Hollow came, it had been home to 12 billion beings. They had built beautiful cities that touched the clouds. They had raised families. They had dreamed of the future. Now it was dark. Every light had been extinguished. Every star in the sky seemed dimmer than before. The Hollow had made this world their hunting ground, and they preferred absolute darkness. Commander Ryu stood at the drop-ship door and looked down at the planet below. She was 34 years old, and she had been a Nightwalker for 12 years. She had fought in underground wars that the public never knew about. She had killed enemies that would have given most people nightmares for life. But this was different. This was the first time humanity would face an enemy from beyond the galaxy. Her soldiers waited behind her. Specialist, the demolitions expert, checked her explosives for the 10th time. Private, barely 20 years old, gripped his rifle with white knuckles. And 20 other Nightwalkers sat in perfect silence, their faces hidden behind black helmets. "Remember your training," said. "The Hollow emit fear frequencies. You will feel terror. You will want to run. You will want to hide. That is normal. That is the weapon they use against all other species." She looked at each of her soldiers in turn. "But we are not other species. We are human. When we feel fear, we do not freeze, we focus. We adapt, we hunt. Fear is not our weakness, fear is our fuel." The dropship shook as it entered the atmosphere. Through the windows could see nothing but darkness. No city lights, no vehicle traffic, no signs of life at all. "Drop in 30 seconds, the pilot announced. Activated her helmet's night vision. The world below turned into shades of green and black. She could see the ruined cities now, the empty streets, the claw marks on every building. 10 seconds. She took a deep breath. Beside her was breathing too fast. His first mission against an unknown enemy. His first time facing something that had destroyed entire civilizations. "Private," said calmly, "what is the first rule of hunting?" Breathing slowed. "Never let the prey know you are coming." "Good." "Second rule. The hunter who panics becomes the prey." "Very good." The dropship doors opened. Cold, dead air rushed in. "Now let us hunt." They fell into darkness. The Hollow attacked within minutes. They came from nowhere, rising out of shadows, emerging from walls, dropping from ceilings. They were nightmares made flesh, all claws and teeth and endless hunger, and they brought fear with them. Felt it hit her like a wave. Every cell in her body screamed at her to run, to hide, to curl up and surrender. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her teeth. Her vision blurred. Her hands shook. And then her training took over. She did not run, she aimed. She fired. The first hollow creature exploded into fragments of shadow. Around her, her soldiers did the same. The fear hit them, and they transformed. They became something else, something older, something that remembered a time when humans hunted mammoths across frozen plains and lions through tall grass. They became predators. Private found himself alone in a dark corridor. A hollow creature crawled toward him on the ceiling, its body bent at impossible angles. It was 3 times his size, and its claws were as long as his forearm. It made no sound. It did not need to. Its very presence was designed to break his mind. Felt the terror wash over him. He remembered stories his grandmother had told him about the soul famine of 2089. She had survived for 3 months on nothing but water and hope. She had watched her neighbors die. She had kept fighting when there was no reason to fight. He was her grandson. He came from a long line of survivors. "You are not the worst thing I have ever faced," whispered to the creature. "You are not even close." He raised his rifle. The hollow hesitated. For the first time in its ancient existence, it sensed something unexpected. The prey was not freezing. The prey was not running. The prey was looking at it with cold, steady eyes. The prey was smiling. Fired, the hollow died. And somewhere in the darkness, other hollow creatures felt something new, something that made them pause in their endless hunting. They felt fear. Specialist crawled through collapsed tunnels, setting explosive charges as she went. She found a hollow nest, a massive chamber where thousands of captured beings from a dozen species were held in some kind of living stasis. They were being kept alive, she realized, so the hollow could feed on their fear indefinitely. She planted her largest charge at the center of the nest. Then she woke the prisoners. The explosion was visible from orbit. 10,000 hollow creatures died in a single second. The prisoners, those who could still move, began fighting their way toward the surface. And in the darkness, Commander led her Nightwalkers deeper into the planet. They did not stop when they were tired. They did not stop when they were wounded. They did not stop when the hollow threw wave after wave of creatures at them. They were persistent hunters. Their ancestors had chased prey across continents for days without rest. They had evolved to never give up, to never surrender, to never stop until the hunt was complete. The hollow had never faced anything like this. Their prey had always frozen or fled. Their prey had always surrendered eventually. But these strange, soft-skinned creatures just kept coming. They took terrible wounds and kept fighting. They lost soldiers and kept advancing. They were surrounded by death and they laughed. After 3 days of continuous hunting, the Nightwalkers emerged from the planet with 17 survivors. Behind them, 7 was cleared. Every hollow on the world was dead. Commander reported to the fleet above. Her voice was hoarse from 3 days without sleep. Her armor was stained with alien blood. Her eyes were still burning with the cold fire of the hunt. 7 is secure, she said, ready for the next target. Admiral looked at the tactical display. 12 more worlds were still dark. 12 more hunting grounds waited. Outstanding work, Commander, he said. Rest for 6 hours, then we move to 9. Smiled behind her helmet. With respect, Admiral, we do not need 6 hours. We are ready now. Across the fleet, other Nightwalker units reported similar results. World after world was being cleared. The hollow were dying by the thousands, and the humans were not slowing down. In the Great Hall of Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council watched the battle footage in stunned silence. They watched humans fight for days without rest. They watched wounded soldiers drag themselves through corridors to reach their enemies. They watched a single Nightwalker hold for 6 hours against endless waves of hollow creatures. The High Speaker could not stop his hands from shaking. The representatives clicked in nervous confusion. The ambassador watched with ancient eyes that held a mixture of hope and horror. They had called humans prey animals. They had laughed at human weakness. They had dismissed humanity as soft and fragile. They had been very, very wrong. And somewhere in the darkness of the outer rim, the hollow began to retreat. For the first time in millions of years, the greatest predators in the galaxy were running. The humans were coming. And nothing could stop them. The war had lasted 3 months. 3 months of darkness and blood and endless hunting. 3 months of human soldiers pushing deeper and deeper into hollow territory. 3 months of footage that made the Galactic Council unable to sleep. They watched humans fight, truly fight, not the careful, measured combat of civilized species, not the tactical retreats and strategic withdrawals that kept casualties low. Humans fought like they had nothing to lose. Humans fought like death was just another enemy to defeat. High Speaker of the Empire sat in his private chambers and watched the latest battle footage. His massive body trembled as he saw things he could not understand. A human pilot flew her damaged fighter directly into a hollow carrier ship. She could have ejected. She could have retreated. Instead, she accelerated. Her final transmission echoed in the chamber. "Tell my daughter that the stars are safe now." The carrier exploded. 10,000 hollow creatures died, and somewhere on Earth a little girl would grow up knowing her mother was a hero. Had fought in wars. He had led armies. He had killed enemies with his own 4 hands, but he had never seen anything like this. He had never faced beings who welcomed death if it meant victory. In the Galactic Council's main hall, representatives gathered for an emergency session. The war was going well, better than anyone had expected. The Hollow were retreating across all fronts. Human fleets were pushing into territory that had been dark for months. But the Council was not celebrating. They were afraid. The ambassador stood at the center of the hall. Her crystal body was brighter now, stronger. She had found hope in humanity's victories, but she had also found fear. "I must tell you something," she said. "Something my people have hidden for centuries. Something that explains why we are so terrified of what we are watching." The hall fell silent. Every delegate turned to listen. 2,000 years ago, they continued, we discovered Earth. It was during our great exploration era when we mapped every corner of the galaxy. We sent a scientific vessel to study the 3rd planet of an unremarkable star system. She paused. Her light flickered with old fear. The scientists never returned, but they sent back data before they died, detailed observations of the dominant species on that planet. Leaned forward, what did they find? The ambassador's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire hall. They found monsters. She activated a holographic display. Ancient images appeared, recorded by observers 2 ago. Humans hunting animals 3 times their size. Humans crossing deserts that should have killed them. Humans building shelters in environments that would destroy any other species. Our scientists classified Earth as a Category Omega death world, they said. The gravity is crushing. The atmosphere is filled with a corrosive gas called oxygen. The climate shifts randomly between extremes. Predators fill every corner of the planet. By all scientific models, complex life should not survive there. She turned to face the council. But humans did not just survive. They conquered. They became the apex predators of a world that was designed to kill them. They developed a hunting strategy that no other species in the galaxy has ever evolved. What strategy? Asked, though he feared the answer. Persistence hunting, they said. Humans do not chase prey and catch it quickly like other predators. They chase prey and follow it and never stop. They walk after their target for days. They follow it across mountains and through rivers and over deserts. The prey runs and runs and runs until its heart gives out from exhaustion. And the humans are still walking, still following, still hunting. The hall was completely silent. They never stop, they whispered. They never tire, they never give up. They simply keep coming until their prey is dead. She deactivated the display. My people classified them with a single recommendation that was buried in our most restricted archives. Do not engage. Do not provoke. Do not remind them they can fight. Let them believe they are peaceful. Felt something he had not felt since he was a child. He felt small. He felt helpless. He felt like prey. But we did provoke them, they said. We laughed at them. We called them weak. We reminded them exactly what they are. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Soul, watching the tactical display. His ship was leading a fleet of 50 human warships toward the Hollow. They had hunted the creatures across 3 galactic arms. They had cleared 100 worlds. They had killed millions of the ancient predators. And they were not finished. Lieutenant stood beside him. She had not slept in 4 days. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her hands were steady. "Captain," she said, "the Council has sent another message. They are asking if we intend to stop at the Hollow." Did not answer immediately. He thought about the great hall of Nexus Prime. He thought about the laughter. He thought about the mockery. "What do you think they are really asking?" he said. Smiled slightly. "They are asking if we will stop at all. They are afraid of what we will do when the Hollow are gone." Nodded. He understood their fear. For 3 months, the galaxy had watched humanity fight with a ferocity that terrified every other species. They had seen humans do things that should have been impossible. They had seen the persistence, the determination, the absolute refusal to surrender. And they were wondering what would happen when humanity turned those same qualities toward them. "Tell the Council that we will discuss terms after the Hollow are extinct," said. "For now, we hunt." In the Great Hall, the message arrived. The delegates read it, and the galaxy shuddered. Looked at the ambassador. His voice was barely a whisper. "What have we done?" The closed her crystal eyes. "We woke the hunters," she said. "We reminded them they are predators. We laughed at monsters who were sleeping and told them they were weak." She opened her eyes, and they were filled with ancient regret. And now they are showing the galaxy exactly what they are. They are the children of a death world. They are persistence predators who never stop. They are the species that conquered a planet designed to kill them and then reached for the stars. She looked at the tactical display, where human fleets were converging on the Hollow. They are not fighting for revenge. They are not fighting for resources. They are fighting because something threatened the galaxy and they decided it needed to die. They will not stop until it is extinct. And when they are done, they will remember every laugh, every insult, every dismissal. Buried his face in his hands. "We are prey now," he said. "We are all prey." The said nothing. There was nothing to say. In the darkness between stars, human ships flew toward the final battle. And aboard every ship, soldiers prepared for the end of the hunt. They were tired, they were wounded, they had lost friends and comrades. But they did not stop, they never stopped. That was what made them human. And that was what made them the most terrifying species the galaxy had ever seen. The Hollow had not seen light for 1,000,000 years. It floated in the void between galaxies, wrapped in eternal darkness. No star warmed its surface. No sun rose over its mountains. It was a world of shadow and hunger, and from it, the greatest predators in the universe had spread across the stars. Now it burned. Admiral stood on the bridge of the and watched the final assault. Human ships filled the sky above the dark world. Human soldiers dropped through the atmosphere by the millions. Human weapons cracked the ancient stone and turned the endless night into fire. The Hollow fought back. Of course they did. They were predators, and predators never surrendered easily. They emerged from caves and tunnels and underground cities. They threw themselves at the human lines with all the fury of a dying species. It was not enough. The humans had been hunting for 1 year. They had cleared 200 worlds. They had killed tens of millions of hollow creatures. They had learned every trick, every pattern, every weakness. And they had never stopped, not for a single day, not for a single hour. Commander Ryu led the final push into the hollow central hive. Her nightwalkers moved like shadows through the darkness, killing everything they found. They were exhausted. They were wounded. Some of them could barely walk. But they kept fighting. That was what humans did. Private, now a sergeant himself, cornered the last Hollow Queen. She was ancient, massive, a creature that had hunted across the galaxy for longer than humanity had existed. She had killed billions. She had destroyed civilizations. She had made entire species go extinct. Now she cowered before a young man from Earth. "You are afraid," said. It was not a question. The Queen made a sound that his translator could not interpret. Perhaps it was a curse. Perhaps it was a plea. Perhaps it was simply the sound of something that had never known fear, finally understanding what it felt like. Raised his weapon. "You should be," he said, and pulled the trigger. The Queen died. The last Hollow died, and across the dark world the fires slowly went out. Admiral received the final report. The Hollow were extinct, not defeated, not contained, extinct. Every last one of them was dead. There was burned. Their species was erased from the universe. He felt no joy. He felt no triumph. He felt only the quiet satisfaction of a completed hunt. "It is done," he said. "Send word to the council and tell our people they can finally rest." Across the fleet, soldiers stopped fighting. They sat down where they stood. Some wept. Some laughed. Some simply stared at nothing, unable to believe it was over. They had won. Humanity had won. They had faced the greatest predators in the galaxy, and they had hunted them to extinction. Now came the harder part. 1 week later, Ambassador walked into the Great Hall of Nexus Prime. He walked the same path he had walked 1 year ago. He passed the same delegates who had laughed at him, mocked him, dismissed him. None of them were laughing now. The hall was silent. Every delegate sat frozen in their seat, watching the human approach. Of the could not meet his eyes. The representatives clicked nervously. The ambassador watched with something that might have been hope or might have been fear. Lieutenant walked beside. She wore her combat armor, still stained with hollow blood. Her face was calm, but her eyes missed nothing. Stopped at the center of the hall. He stood exactly where he had stood 1 year ago, when he had begged for help and been laughed at. "I have come to present humanity's terms," he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the hall. Found his voice. Terms. Yes, terms for humanity's continued participation in galactic affairs. Pulled out a small data device. Full council membership. Unrestricted trade routes through all sectors. A permanent human military presence in every major system. He looked at. These are not requests. They are acknowledgments of reality. The hall erupted in whispers. Some delegates protested. Some nodded. Some simply stared in shock. The ambassador rose. Her crystal body shimmered with uncertain light. "And if we refuse," she asked, "will you destroy us? Will you hunt us as you hunted the Hollow?" The hall fell silent again. Everyone waited for the answer. Looked at, she whispered something in his ear. He nodded slowly. "You are asking if humanity will seek revenge," he said. "You are asking if we will punish you for your past insults, your mockery, your dismissal." He paused. "No, we will not." A wave of relief swept through the hall. Delegates relaxed. Some even smiled. "We are not monsters," continued. "We are human, we forgive." He paused again. When he spoke again, his voice was harder. "But we never forget." The relief vanished. The fear returned. "You called us prey animals," said. "You laughed at our weakness. You refused to help our colonies when they were raided. We remember every insult. We remember every dismissal. We remember exactly how you treated us when we asked for help." He leaned forward slightly. His eyes were steady and cold. "We forgive you. But if any species ever threatens humanity again, if any power ever dismisses our warnings, if any delegate ever laughs at our weakness, they will learn what we learned long ago on our death world." His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow reached every corner of the silent hall. The darkness is not empty. We are what waits in the darkness, and we are always hunting. No one spoke, no one moved, no one breathed. Straightened up, his face softened slightly. We choose to be protectors instead of predators. We choose to defend this galaxy instead of conquer it. We choose to forgive instead of punish. He looked around the hall, at every delegate, at every species. Do not make us change our minds. The council voted. Every delegate raised their hand in favor of humanity's terms, even the species that had laughed the loudest. The vote was unanimous. Humanity had won, not just the war against the Hollow. They had won the respect and fear of every species in the galaxy. Weeks later, Captain Park stood on the observation deck of the Soul, looking at the stars. The ship was heading home. His crew was resting. The war was over. Lieutenant joined him. She had finally cleaned her armor. She looked almost peaceful. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. Smiled slightly. "I am thinking about the future, about what happens now that the galaxy knows what we are." Nodded. "They will be afraid of us." "Yes, but fear can become respect, and respect can become trust. It will take time, but we can build something better. We can protect them instead of dominate them." Looked at him. "You really believe that?" Was quiet for a long moment. "I believe we have a choice," he finally said. "We can be monsters. We can let our nature control us. We can hunt and destroy and conquer." He turned to face her. "Or we can be human. We can control our nature. We can protect instead of destroy. We can be the guardians of the galaxy instead of its predators." "And which do you choose?" Looked back at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were looking at the same stars and wondering what humanity would do next. They were afraid. They were uncertain. They were waiting. "I choose to be human," he said. "I choose to protect." He smiled. "But I will never let them forget that we could have chosen differently. And that is why they will never threaten us again." Far away, on a colony world, a young child asked her grandmother why they were always so kind to human visitors. The grandmother looked at the stars. She remembered the war footage. She remembered the fear. "Because, little one," she said softly, "they chose to be our protectors instead of our predators. And we must never, ever give them a reason to change their minds." The child nodded and went back to playing. And in the darkness between stars, aboard 1,000 warships, humanity finally rested. They had become exactly what the galaxy feared. They had become exactly what the galaxy needed. They were the monsters that hunted other monsters. And they were just getting started.